Thank you very much, Mr. Saud, and I'm glad everybody clapped. We are all humans and not robots. Very good. Our next presenter is Mr. Hemant Murkoth, the CEO of Business Gateways. Mr. Murkoth has over 30 years of experience in the IT industry right here in Oman and other nations, with an extensive background in implementing and overseeing national-level IT-related projects. Through Business Gateways, Mr. Murkoth has led several consulting teams on procurement, IT infrastructure, engineering, subsidy deployment, and FDI implementation strategies here in Oman. He is also the chief architect of the award-winning portal businessgateways.com. Please put your hands together for Mr. Murkoth, and let's welcome him on stage.
Your Highness, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, and a very good morning. I think I'm going to be quite conscious of the time, so I may probably need a huge clock on my head to make sure that I don't tread into others' timelines. So today, my original topic of discussion was more about business gateways and the value addition that we do in regards to Oman's journey on various platforms. But then I kind of took a slight detour and surprised Swati and the team in terms of changing those particular approach a little, because I thought that let's look at it in a slightly different way, considering what Mr. Saeed Al-Manzari was also discussing about the digital transformation and the Vision 2040. And so my topic today is going to be on enabling technologies towards Vision 2040 and its impact. And then later on, probably I'll be connecting that to what business gateways we do and how we kind of connect to the impact zones that we work with. So Oman has a vision. And the vision is very clear that by 2040, Oman should reach the developed nation status. It's a very transparent, a well sorted out approach that we have put in place. We are talking the journey for the next 18 years or so. And I may be there, I may not be there, I honestly don't know. But what I'm excited about is I'm here today. And we are pretty honored to at least contribute in a little way, whatever we can, to make sure that this journey, that whatever we are setting up, it actually realizes to what we want to achieve. And I'm pretty sure I'm speaking on behalf of everyone here as well. So in order to achieve that, I happened to take a look at the vision document. And I'm pretty sure that all of you have also done it. Just the fact of the matter is that I was a little late in looking at it. But what really struck me is such a complex journey that had to be defined by the think tanks those days when they were setting up through Tanfeed and all the particular working models that were put together. What really struck me was that the culmination of all that hard work that went into creating this vision document was so simply and so beautifully put, so that any common person, including people like me, can really make sense of it all, can understand where exactly we stand and what is in it for us or for me on the whole part of the journey. So what I did was, I kind of took this whole thing into this particular slide, grabbed my attention a lot, because this culminates into the national priorities of what Oman needs to achieve over a period of time. And I'm even, as I said, I'm enamored by what would have gone into this work in order to achieve this particular point here. But over here, we are talking about 12 major pillars, if I may use the word just for the purpose of understanding. We are talking about 12 major pillars, and with each pillar, we are talking about multiple areas that are there within each pillar. So that said, what would happen here is that each of these particular pillars or each of the areas inside that is by itself too vast for us to even comprehend sometimes. When we look at certain pillars here, talks about specifically sectors. Certain pillars they're talking about is holistically for the country. It's national. It's not about something specific to a particular sector. It can holistically cover. So how did this vision document actually come to light here is that they made it a very simple component. So what I've done there is they have mentioned the strategic priorities that are there on the right. So whole structure is boiled down to this. where they have taken each priority and engaged that into different subsections. So what are the subsections that we're talking about? Is the strategic direction of that particular priority, the objectives of that particular priority, performance indicators that go into the priority, and finally, the social development goals mapping as well. So it's pretty clear. I mean, the roadmap is awesomely put together in terms of what is to be done. And it's quite interesting to read this as well. Question for me was that, okay, we have seen all this stuff here. How do guys like me and so many of our friends here from the IT sector, how do we contribute? How do we make sure that we are able to enable what we really want to do for Oman from an IT perspective? Because at the end of the day, all these governance that we're talking about should eventually culminate into IT enablement, yeah? So this was a question that kind of came to my mind. And then what I thought, okay, let me try and figure out a journey, which probably I'd like to share with you, to understand how we could probably take this whole approach into the model. So I'm starting from these priorities that we have here at this moment. We are talking about the e-Oman strategy, like what Atul was mentioning. This forms the national governance strategy for the country, the e-Oman, when you look at it from an enablement perspective. So when you superimpose this e-Oman strategy onto this whole priority list, you will understand that holistically, all the actions that go into each of these particular priority banners would entail itself into this whole process of that. So from a key governance perspective, when we want to look at it more from a governance side of it and to have a broader framework, the e-Oman strategy is something as a key foundation for us to kind of go forward in terms of what we need to do. Then we come to the buzzwords, the jargon as what we call. Before digital transformation, it was more about digitization, we had digitalization, and now we are on to the digital transformation as such. Now, I'm not going to take a class on this here because I'm pretty sure that all of you are aware of what they basically mean. Before we even talk about the 3 Ds of the development here, there was something called as a C factor before. I mean, old guys like me, way back in the 80s, we used to use a C factor component there, and that was primarily called for computerization. You know, we used to use the word computerize. When we say, okay, we have computerized a payroll application, we have computerized a reservation system. We never had these kind of high-end jargons that were used. So as we kind of go forward, the journey kind of gets moved in. And IT sector, you know, we guys love to complicate. We love to use words like this to throw in the gauntlet. Whenever we get a buzzword, we bring it in. But to cut through it all, digitization basically is nothing but conversion of all your manual processes to documents to your e-enabled model of a digital models, which are there. The second stage of maturity that happened was on the digitalization, where these particular silos or repositories of content that we had exactly created came into a particular situation where we had to automate those processes in order to get the job done. And today, from a maturity perspective, we are onto the digital transformation scenario. So, simply speaking, digital transformation, taking it from what Atliya and even Mr. Said, what they were mentioning, for me, according to me, it's more about an intensification of the technologies that are there to bring it to the grassroots. Because we have to take these technologies to the grassroots. We have to make it deep-rooted into the models that are there. Because one side you have the technologies, the other side you have the processes. And then you have, as I always love to look at, is the process of how we are going to achieve that is through these digital platforms. Now, this is the space where I love to come in, and I really work a lot on digital platforms. I mean, from a technology-driven IT platforms, and this is what business gateways we do in short. But these digital platforms that we're talking about today must actually connect itself into these areas, which is to do with the national priorities. Yeah. So every digital platform that we talk about in Oman for multiple initiatives will create ecosystems. Now, these ecosystems must actually coordinate and translate itself into one integrated ecosystem so that there is a constant data share. There is, what we talk about, one of the dangers in Oman, if I may say that today, is the danger of creating silos. Because we see multiple initiatives going around in the market, but each of them forming their own silos. And sometimes it's strange that we are reinventing the wheel in terms of what the work has already been done. So by looking at these integrated ecosystems, these platforms must become the key enablers. And for whom? It is for the government, the corporate, the society, and the people. As I said, it should be holistic, where we are talking about bringing any transformation, any enablement that we do to reach out to the grassroots levels of the people that are there. And that's where we talked about, my favorite topic is on these public layers. And today, ladies and gentlemen, public layers are one of the most important facets of any country. No longer we are talking about governments holding on to the data in a particular way, or the corporates holding on to the data in a particular way. Everything is transparency. We are talking about bringing on board those kind of public layers where people can participate both from a participatory model and from a contributory model. You could either be a passive spectator to understand what's going on, or you could get into an active spectators, even at the grassroots citizens, to participate and bring on board the whole thing which is there. So this holistic way of looking at it is where we finally connect them to the performance indicators. This is the key difference, because most of the applications today in the market, we are looking at achievement of maybe the bottom line, profitability, efficiency, etc., that we work with. But in reality, today, one of the key indicators on these performance indicators connect themselves to the national priorities. If we are able to build platforms from now on for the next, let's say, 10 years, even if you're looking at 8 years to the journey of 2030 as our landing milestone, if we are able to attach these platforms to these performance indicators, then we have something going towards enabling the e-vision of Oman towards where we want to go. Performance indicators could be simple, like, for example, the National Competitive Index, the National Innovation Index. There are multiple performance indicators that we're talking about. But if we are able to stitch this on a strategic model, then we got something good going on in this overall process. Here, we are looking at the national priority projects. So if at all we are looking at projects that we have to do, how do we make sure that we implement these projects down the line? There are two aspects to it. One is direct projects by the government. There's a tender, there's a participation on that. You run that particular thing with a clear objective of direct visions of what we want to do. The other one is from the public-private sector participation models. This is where I root, because this is where I think we really come into play there. And whatever said and done, the bottom line for that is the e-governance, where we want to implement the e-governance systems that we really want to reach to the people and to the processes. What enables the e-governance at the end of the day? Are these integrated platforms. Because these integrated platforms would eventually, for creating regulations, the laws, the framework, and the technology, meeting to this particular e-governance model. So it's a fit from either side. It comes in from the top, vis-a-vis that of the various kind of projects that we need to work. And on the bottom side, we are looking at the enablement of technologies that would really drive this particular active figures that we know to work on. So why should the government sector look at all the IT companies in Oman to be an active participant for all these projects? Because we are looking at build, operate, and transfer models. Rather than the government directly owning it up and trying to operate and manage it by themselves, the key question here is, why not involve the private sector? And when do you involve the private sector? The private sector comes in from technology partners like ours or any of the IT companies over here. I'm talking on behalf of everyone, is when you know that your projects require intense operations, when you know that your projects require a lot of intense mechanisms that are going in, whether it's in terms of agile business processes, specialized expertise, bottom line impact, I'm sorry about the word wrap that's happening there, and the changing infrastructure and the technology services. So everything is a journey, because it's the easiest part is developing a platform. The most important and the most difficult part is sustaining it, operating it, and ensuring that there is a maturity map of building and growing on those particular platforms. And this is precisely where the private sector comes in. What the government would be focusing on, would be on terms of strong SLAs, the data ownership, and the sustainability of the model. So if the government is able to weed out or to kind of dislocate themselves from the nitty-gritties of what they do and focus on the governance and look at the big picture to ensure compliance to the objectives that we there, freeing themselves and their machinery to concentrate on the strategic roles and leave the engine room guys to take care of this thing, I think we have a fantastic win-win model that is being put in place. Now, Just to talk to you about, I have just another probably 2 minutes. So just to talk to you about what Business Gateways does in this particular aspect, where we are talking about build, own, and operate, or a build, transfer, or a build, own, and build, operate, and transfer models. We have 3 major platforms that we have built so far. One is on the joint supplier registration. This is a typical build, own, and operate model on behalf of the Ministry of Energy and Minerals. And I'm not talking about it being done now. It was done in 2014. And they took the leadership. In fact, they took the risk, I must say, humbly, to hand this over to a small private company like us in order to build a massive system on behalf of the entire oil and gas industry's procurement models. And this today is a highly successful platform in Oman, and for the last 8 years, we've been operating it comfortably. Now, the Ministry of Energy focuses on only the steer. They concentrate on the steer and leave the rest of the data mechanisms, ensuring the certifications, etc. here. The Ministry of Commerce and Industry, as you all know, the Invest in Oman portal, this was developed by us, but this is more about investment facilitation, but this project was more about handing over this responsibility to the Ministry of Commerce. The final one is the National Subsidy System. This is a project that I'm truly proud of, because this is where the impact has really happened in the country. We are talking about more than 500,000 Omani citizens who have actually registered on this particular platform, and they are empowered to understand the subsidies on both fuel and electricity. I would need 3 hours to talk only about that, for which I don't have the time now. But what I'm trying to tell you is these kind of success stories, and it's not just about business gateways. I'm pretty sure that so many IT companies here have also got their own success stories when it comes to build and operate models. But this is the way we might probably have to look at it from the particular perspective. So I'm sorry. So if I'm just looking at it, you see that this is how we align the projects to the national priority. So what I did is I just tried to put up a jigsaw to figure out, hey, where does the national subsidy system fit into the national priorities as a project? Where does the JSRS fit into the national subsidy, as a project into the national priorities? Where does Invest in Oman fit in? And I was amazed to see that, yes, there is a fit. Even though we did not even think about it before, there is technically a fit. And I'm pretty sure that all the platforms that Oman is building would eventually need to have this fit to figure out, and then get into the details of the rest of the models that are there. So my time is out, so I'm just quickly going to run through just to show you what are the key takeaways that we're looking at. We, as a private sector, we would like to really work closely with ITCA Group, because we know ITCA Group is driving a lot of strategic projects, but we need to share the strategies. We need to understand where we want to go, how do you want to go, when do you want to go, and so that the IT sector of Oman can also align itself towards that particular models that are there. Digital transformation is a learning, of course. We need our own time. Aiming for corporate higher responsibilities, there's a lot of room for IT companies to actually participate in such platform developments if we are able to align themselves to what are the opportunities that are there vis-a-vis that of the pillars. And imparting cross-integrations, driving open sources models that are there, because today I think the government is going towards open source and inculcating a participatory and contributory culture for every citizen to work. So it is not a government's job alone to reach the vision. This is about making sure that we all work together in terms of realizing the dreams. So I'm done. Shukran jazilan, and thank you very much for this time. Appreciate it. I'm sorry I split it out by 1 minute. Thank you.